everybody, it's Rebecca. It's the 9th episode of the Revenue Rundown. We are getting very nerdy today. So I hope that you haven't had a big lunch because we're going to be talking about business taxes and I don't want you to fall asleep. But that being said, we're super excited to be here with my guest, Jonathan Liss. He's a member of our technical staff. Super smart guy. You teach at Drexel. You teach at Drexel sometimes. But before we get to that, I just want to mention that last week's Taxpayer Appreciation Day videos are up on our YouTube. The word recalcitrant was used. I mean, that is YouTube gold right there, all right? Also, we answer your burning questions like why is there no due date on your water bill? Like if you want to know the answer to that and many, many other specific questions that you might have had, make sure that you check out youtube.com/PhilaRevenue. All those videos are there. Check them out. We also have a little bit of a like whose video will get the most views. So you might be helping out a member of the executive staff. Another thing to keep in mind is that we are in March. Real estate taxes are due at the end of this month. So March 31st, your real estate taxes are due. If you are having any trouble paying your real estate taxes, it's important that you reach out to us. You can call us at 215-686-6442. So, reach out to us at phila.gov/revenue. There's all kinds of information about programs, but just reach out to us. There's lots of help available. Also, excuse me, I'm still working on my cold, so I'm going to put my tissues right here in case you need some. This week we published a blog about what to do if you have a property assessment that's still pending and property taxes are due and you don't know what to do because you're not sure where your assessment's going to land. We did send a letter to all the folks who are in that situation. If you didn't get it, there is a blog post online right now at phila.gov/revenue that helps explain more about what you need to do. You have some new options, some legislation passed that made some changes. So take a look at that and excuse me, and you can always get more about what you need. This cold, will not stop.
The cold that will never die.
Right. Anyway, you guys were super great last week and listening to my croaky voice. Okay, so this week we also published a Q&A with John about some really specific, some business tax issues. This is meant to be like a really quick conversation that's a wrap-up about that blog, but if you want more information, check out that interview and you can always reach out to us. Okay, so number one, is it mandatory to file and pay your business taxes electronically?
It is. It is mandatory to pay or file and pay certain taxes. So Philadelphia beverage tax is one of them, and the other is the UNO tax. In addition, for taxpayers that owe $5,000 or more in BIRT or NPT, that's the business income and receipts tax, net profits tax, you must pay those taxes electronically as well if you exceed $5,000. However, we do encourage all taxpayers to file and pay electronically. It's easy to do, reduces costs and errors, it's secure, and we also participate in the IRS modernized e-filing program. And
right.
There's actually a list of certified vendors that you may use to file and pay your taxes. It's on our website. Right.
So basically, there's a couple taxes that require that you're paying online and filing online, but especially if you're doing more than $5,000 in BIRT or NPT. Mm-hmm. But really, you should just file it online for everything.
It's really easy. Everything these days is online, so why not file and pay your taxes online?
Why not? You can, if you go to phila.gov/pay, you'll find a listing of all of our taxes, business or otherwise, and it's pretty easy to walk through. And also, we have video walkthrough of the city's e-file e-pay system. So that's also on our YouTube channel. And then, the modern electronic filing, mm-hmm. Basically, if you have a preparer who's using software, there's a set of software that supports Philadelphia taxes, and those vendors are listed online. So check that out. And encourage your tax preparer to use one of those because because it'll make your filing easier for both the preparer and for yourself. So, that's our big plug.
And there are quite a few vendors, that are listed. Go Systems is one of them. Corp Tax, a lot of the major vendors.
Intuit
are there.
Pro, yeah.
Exactly.
There's, I think, 8 or 9 now, and the list keeps growing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then this was a question that you answered a while ago on our blog, which is, do non-residents, people who don't live in Philadelphia, who telecommute, do they owe Philadelphia wage tax?
Great question. Well, telecommuting is becoming more and more prevalent. It seems like so many people are doing that these days. They're working from home for various reasons. So we've had this long-standing position. I mean, this is really nothing new. It's just that we've broadcast it, I think, a little bit more recently. And we use what we call a requirement of employment standard to determine if a non-resident employee may be exempted from the wage tax. So basically, this applies to all non-residents. So it's anyone who doesn't reside in the city of Philadelphia, whose employer's base of operations is in the city. So in other words, your employer's in the city, you reside outside the city, and if the employer requires you, the employee, to perform your job outside of the city, then you may be exempt from wage tax for that period of time that you're outside the city. So let's do an example here.
Okay.
So I'm a non-resident. I live in Conshohocken. I work for a company that's based here in the city of Philadelphia, in Center City.
Maybe you work...
Maybe I work for Aramark.
Or some other large technology company that's based in Philadelphia.
Right.
Who does business in many other places.
Has customers, throughout the country. So let's say my employer, whether it's Aramark or a tech company or whomever, requires me to go to Delaware, to go to a site in Delaware for several weeks out of the year to perform my services, to do my job, okay? Since it's a requirement of employment for me to do that, then I can exempt from my city wage tax liability wages for the time that I am performing services in the state of Delaware.
Okay, but there's a caveat here, right? Isn't there a caveat on this policy?
Oh.
There's a big one.
Yes, there's a big caveat. I'm sorry. If you telecommute for the sake of convenience, so for example, let's use another example, okay? You have Joe, and Joe lives in Maple Glen, okay? And he's employed by a company here in the city of Philadelphia. And he decided to have a very liberal work from home policy, his employer does. So he decides, I'm going to work from home every Friday and not come into the office in Center City, Philadelphia, to accept it, etc. Can save some commuting time, but it's at his convenience. Because of the employee's convenience. So if it's at his convenience and it's not required by the employer, then those wages would not be exempt.
Okay.
So thank you for reminding me about that.
So there's two situations. One where your employer says, you need to go to New York or you need to go to Delaware, wherever you have to go do your work. That's exempt from the wage tax. Mm-hmm. But if you just decide, well, I'm not going to come in because I don't have to, that situation is different. Your employer's not requiring that you stay home, for work purposes.
Right. So obviously, the application of this rule is largely based on fact and circumstances.
So the other big question that we have, and this is a very kind of a new thing that's happened. It's very exciting in the tax world. As exciting as it can get.
It is.
There was a really, really important Supreme Court decision. This is the federal Supreme Court, or the U.S. Supreme Court, about, excuse me, a particular case about, it's called the Wayfair decision. Do you want to explain what that is and what it means for businesses?
Sure. Well, first of all, you're absolutely right. In the state tax world, this was huge. And as a matter of fact, when they had oral argument before the U.S. Supreme Court, there were tax people lined up at 3 o'clock in the morning so they could get in to see the oral argument. I kid you not. Lines of tax geeks, lawyers and accountants, etc. This is a very big issue.
I actually think it's actually really a very interesting case, and it has huge implications.
It does.
For businesses.
It does. No, absolutely.
And this is Wayfair versus North Dakota or South Dakota? Wayfair versus South Dakota.
The state of South Dakota. So Wayfair is an online retailer, for those of you who don't know. And the case originated in South Dakota, so it went through the court system in South Dakota, percolated up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and basically I'm back in class. The case relates to a concept called nexus. Now, nexus simply means connection. So it basically gets to what's the degree of business activity that must be present, that a company must have in a state, before the state can subject the company to an income tax or a sales tax.
So basically, in the past, like nexus means like you have to have a connection to the jurisdiction before they can say that you owe tax to it.
Correct.
So in the past, nexus was a physical standard, right?
Absolutely.
So that meant you had people here or you had a property here.
Right.
Well, now it's all on its head.
The tide has turned, exactly. So basically for 50 years, for the last 50 years, the standard, as Rebecca pointed out, was that you must have a physical presence. So you have to have property. You have to have an office, manufacturing facility, warehouse. You have to have people in the state before the state can require you to collect and remit sales tax. So this was a sales tax case. And this standard existed for 50 years. Right. There were 2 previous U.S. Supreme Court decisions that held that physical presence is the proper standard for nexus. So fast forward to Wayfair, the court decides no longer is physical presence required for nexus. So the standard is now what we call economic nexus, which essentially means that if you direct economic activity in a state, that's sufficient to create nexus. So simply purposefully availing yourself of the state's market, is what we call it, is sufficient.
So what that means for like everyone out there in the real world, what that means is that if you're an online seller, it means that if you are selling to an area, then that creates nexus, and it means that you are subject to the taxes in that area, which is really good for local businesses because it kind of creates a level playing field
for the brick and mortar companies.
For the brick and mortar people who are here. So if folks are selling inside of Philadelphia online from, I don't know, anywhere, Michigan, North Dakota, wherever, they will now have to pay they'll have to pay state sales tax, and we're developing, there's some other implications too, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So we took a look at that case and the outcome of that case, and let me just back up a little bit. So the South Dakota law basically said that if Wayfair or any other taxpayer exceeded a certain threshold of sales or transactions, it was actually $100,000 of sales in South Dakota or 200 separate transactions to South Dakota customers. If you exceed that threshold, then you have nexus. You have the obligation to collect and remit sales tax. So we took a look at the Wayfair decision. We read the decision. We were looking at what other states were done, and then we decided that in order to basically follow that decision, that we would adopt our own economic nexus standard for the BERT. So we've amended our regulations, and effective January 1, 2019, if a company makes over $100,000 of sales into Philadelphia, then that's sufficient to create nexus for the BERT.
So that doesn't really affect businesses that are here.
Correct.
That really affects businesses that are outside of Philadelphia.
Right.
And I would say it creates a more level playing field for the businesses that are here in Philadelphia. So I think it's a really good change in policy for businesses here in Philly. And so essentially, if you're an online retailer and you're doing business here, and you're selling to folks here in Philly, if you do more than $100,000 in business, you'll be subject to the business income and receipts tax.
And there's no transaction threshold. It's simply sales dollars. So over $100,000 of sales within the last year, then you're obligated to file a BERT return and pay the tax. That's essentially the way it works.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I know
Pleasure.
that's like super in the weeds for so many folks, but I think for businesses it's really important, and it's an important message that we want to start to spread about this change and about some of the other stuff that we're getting out there. While you have the mic, is there anything else you want to say to the city of Philadelphia?
I would definitely like to say something. Bryce Harper, if you're listening, welcome to Philadelphia. We're looking forward to seeing you at Citizens Bank Park.
So that's, same, I guess. I'm super excited too. We do a Revenue 101. If your organization wants to learn more about basic business tax stuff, or you think that your constituents would really benefit from understanding the 4 major business taxes, Jonathan and I and some of the other tax staff have developed kind of a little mini workshop to walk people through that. It's got examples. It helps people understand how those taxes work. We're not trying to make you a tax expert, but we want you to understand how it works so that when you work with your tax preparer, you know what's going on. That being said, we do lots and lots of outreach stuff, not just for business taxes, but we're doing a ton of stuff for the community and community outreach around real estate assistance programs, and especially senior tax freeze. So for this year only, the senior tax freeze deadline is March 15th. So we're doing a ton of outreach around that. We're going to a bunch of senior centers this week, reaching out directly to seniors about the senior tax freeze. So if you're in the area, come out and say hi to our staff. Saturday, March 2nd, we'll be at Councilwoman Blackwell's Get Your House in Order event. That is going to be super fun. It's always a huge event. We'll also be at the NACA Home Ownership Workshop, which is also in West Philadelphia. On Monday, March 4th, we'll be at the Juniata Park Older Adult Center. This one, again, that's especially for seniors. If you think that you're eligible for senior tax freeze, get there. The Northeast Older Adult Center will also be there on March 4th, and then the Point Breeze Community Development Coalition meeting. Also Tuesday, March 5th, we'll be at the North City Congress. That's also an event just for seniors. So if you think, or that is targeted for seniors. Wednesday, March 6th, this is a big deal. It's the Kensington Utility Fair. All of the utilities are going to be there to help get you into assistance programs. Also, revenue staff will be there, water assistants, real estate assistants, and it's at a senior center. So there will be lots of folks there who can help you with senior tax freeze, owner-occupied payment agreements. So there's 2 dates on this, March 6th and March 9th. Check it out at water.phila.gov/utility-fairs. We'll make sure that there's a link on the comments of this video. And then just last little bits, March 7th is the South Philly Older Adult Center for seniors, Concerned Citizens of Point Breeze, and then also the CCRA Public Forum on Property Taxes. So if you want us to show up to your meeting to talk about any of these things, business taxes or real estate assistance programs, let us know. Reach out to Vicki Riley at vicki.riley@phila.gov. We're happy to get you on the calendar. It's tax season. We're in the home stretch, so we hope that you reach out to us sooner than later. But we're always in the community all year long. You can always get us on your calendar, or we can always get you onto a calendar. I think that's it for this week. Joseph, is that everything? All right. We'll wrap it up here. I hope you have a great day and
great weekend.
Yeah, and have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks.
Thank you.